My girlfriend, insistent that I meet her parents for dinner, spent the evening mocking me in Spanish, assuming I couldn't understand. She chuckled, saying I was too dim to realize what was happening. At the meal's conclusion, I expressed gratitude to her parents for their warm welcome in flawless, fluent Spanish, then laid bare every falsehood she'd ever told me. My girlfriend of 2 years, Camila, had been on a mission for the past 6 months. Her goal was straightforward: convince me to meet her parents. I was reluctant, not out of fear of commitment, but because of how she portrayed them. They sounded strict, old-fashioned, and deeply involved in her life. Camila, however, was persistent. She stressed it was a critical step for our relationship. Eventually, I gave in. The dinner was set for last night. I had no clue I wasn't heading to a simple meal. I was walking into a trap. Before I go further, I need to share something vital about myself. My last name is Thompson. I appear to all eyes like a standard American guy. But my mother, who died of cancer when I was 16, hailed from Granada, Spain. She came to the U.S. in her 20s. Spanish was the language of my childhood home. It was how she sang me lullabies, shared tales, and expressed her love. After her passing, speaking Spanish became agonizing. It was a private tongue tied to memories of her. I tucked it away in a quiet corner of my soul and rarely used it. Camila knew my mother had died, but she never probed further. She wasn't one for details unless they served her directly. She assumed my mom was American, like my dad. In 2 years, she never once inquired about my mother's roots. My fluency in impeccable Castilian Spanish was a secret I never deliberately hid, but one she never cared enough to uncover. We arrived at her parents' home last night. They matched her description, cordial on the surface but with piercing, judgmental gazes. Her father, Mr. Alvarez, greeted me with a firm handshake. Her mother, Mrs. Alvarez, offered a polite but distant smile. We sat in their elegant dining room and the charade began. Camila launched into rapid Spanish with her parents. She turned to me with a dazzling smile. "We're just thrilled to catch up," she said. "We'll switch to English soon, I promise." The switch never happened. For the next 2 hours, I sat there, listening to the woman I loved tear me apart in a language she believed was her private code. I smiled courteously. I nodded when they glanced at me. I passed the bread and I understood every venomous word. It began with my job. I'm an architect at a thriving firm. "He's decent," she told them in Spanish, "but he lacks ambition. He's content in his little office. I'm the one with real goals. I cover most of our fancy trips and dinners." This was a blatant lie. I earn more than twice her income and have funded every vacation we've taken. Then she attacked my personality and cultural awareness. "He's nice enough," she said with a sigh. "But he has no interest in our heritage. He won't even learn a few Spanish phrases. He's just a typical dull American, obsessed with sports and fast food. It's tiring." Just the week prior, I'd finished reading a biography of Spanish architect Antoni Gaudí in its original Spanish. The final blow came when her mother asked about our future, whether marriage was in the cards. Camila laughed, a sharp, crystalline sound that felt like shards in my ears. "Oh, I want to marry," she said, "but he's the one stalling. He's terrified of commitment. I practically have to beg him to discuss our future." In my jacket pocket, in a small pouch, was the design sketch for the engagement ring I was having crafted. I planned to propose on a surprise trip to France I'd booked for her birthday next month. The conversation went on like this all evening. They dissected my character, finances, family, and future while I sat there, a polite guest at my own dismantling. The worst was her casual malice, the way she'd gaze at me with a tender, fake smile while telling her parents I was a simple-minded burden. As dessert was served, she delivered the final strike. Her father asked, "Are you sure about him, Mija? He seems plain." Camila laughed, patted my hand affectionately, and looked into my eyes with feigned adoration. In Spanish, she said, "It's fine. He's too clueless to know we're talking about him. Look at him grinning like a fool." That was the breaking point. The hurt, the fury, the betrayal crystallized into a single, steely resolve. I wouldn't make a scene. I wouldn't shout. I'd wait for the perfect moment and dismantle her world with nothing but the truth. The moment arrived as we prepared to leave. Her father, perhaps feeling a pang of guilt, patted my shoulder and spoke in slow, deliberate English, as if to a child. "It was nice meeting you, Ryan," he said. I smiled warmly. Looking him in the eye, I let the language of my mother, the one Camila had weaponized, flow effortlessly. "El placer fue entrament mío, Señor Alvarez," I said in perfect Castilian Spanish. "The pleasure was entirely mine, Mr. Alvarez." I turned to his wife. Why usted, Señora Alvarez es una cocinera extraordinaria, la cena fue exquisita. Muchas gracias por su cálida hospitalidad. And you, Mrs. Alvarez, are an extraordinary cook. The dinner was exquisite. Thank you for your warm hospitality. The impact was immediate. Mrs. Alvarez's spoon clattered onto her plate. Mr. Alvarez's jaw dropped, his eyes wide with shock. And Camila, her face turned a ghastly shade of pale I'd never seen. She looked like she might faint. I wasn't done. Keeping my polite smile, I turned back to her parents and continued in fluent Spanish. And Camila, I want to thank you too. This evening has been incredibly revealing. There are just a few things I'd like to clarify while we're all here. Update 1. The silence in the Alvarez dining room was deafening, a heavy, stifling quiet broken only by Mrs. Alvarez's shaky breaths. Camila sat frozen, her face a portrait of sheer dread. She looked like a gambler realizing her opponent wasn't a novice but a master who'd been toying with her. I kept my tone calm and genial, as if making casual after-dinner chat. I spoke directly to her parents in the clear, formal Spanish my mother had instilled in me. First, I began, Camila mentioned concerns about my career and finances. I want to reassure you, she must have been mistaken. I was promoted to junior partner at my firm last month with a substantial raise. I'm actually doing quite well. I pulled out my phone, opened the confirmation email for the France trip I'd planned for her birthday, and set it on the table for them to see. As for her paying for our luxuries, this is the itinerary for the surprise trip I was taking her on next month. First-class flights, a suite at the Ritz in Paris. I believe she said she funds our vacations. Just a simple mix-up, I'm sure. I glanced at Camila. A lone tear streaked down her cheek, cutting through her makeup. She didn't move. Second, I continued, addressing her stunned parents, she mentioned my lack of interest in her culture. This cut deeply. My mother, Elina, was from Granada. She raised me in her language. It was the tongue of my home, my heart. After her death, it became a private, painful memory. I didn't share it with Camila because it was sacred. Her assumption that my silence meant ignorance or disrespect is unfortunate. Mrs. Alvarez touched her chest, her face softening with empathy. Mr. Alvarez stared at his daughter with growing disappointment. And finally, I said, delivering the final blow, my voice turning cold and sharp as I faced Camila. The matter of commitment. You told your parents I'm scared of marriage, that I'm the one delaying it. You said this knowing I've spent the last month designing a custom engagement ring for you, knowing I plan to propose under the Parisian sky. But I see now a man cannot propose to a woman who thinks he's a foolish, oblivious idiot. A man cannot build a life with someone who uses his late mother's sacred language to mock and belittle him. I let those words linger. Once again, thank you for everything, I said to her parents. You have a beautiful home. Then I walked out, got in my car, and drove away, leaving Camila to face the wreckage of her own making. The 30-minute drive to our apartment was the longest of my life. She eventually followed, but we didn't speak. The silence was louder than any fight. At the apartment, the dam broke. She erupted, accusing me of deceiving her, of setting her up. You knew all along, she screamed, voice raw. You sat there and let me talk. You humiliated me on purpose. No, Camila, I said, exhausted. I didn't do anything. I just sat there and existed. You humiliated yourself with your own lies. All I did was understand them. She broke down, begging for forgiveness, claiming she didn't mean it, that she was just trying to impress her parents by boosting herself. Her excuses were flimsy and obvious. There's no coming back from this, I said. You didn't just lie to your parents. You lied about every part of our life, and you used my mother's memory as a stage for your performance. That's unforgivable. I pulled a suitcase from the closet. This is my apartment. The lease is in my name. I want you to pack and be gone by the end of the week. She stared, her face collapsing as the weight of my words hit. She hadn't just lost an argument, she'd lost everything. Update 2. The week after the catastrophic dinner was a somber affair. Camila moved through the apartment like a specter, packing her life into boxes. The air was heavy with her silent resentment and my unyielding resolve. She tried a few more tearful apologies, but they were weak. She wasn't sorry for her actions, she was sorry she got caught. By Friday, she was gone. I helped carry her last box to her car. We didn't say farewell. I closed the door, returned to my quiet apartment, and felt the deep relief of removing a toxic presence. I thought that was the end. I was mistaken. The real consequences were just starting. Days later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I answered warily. It was Mr. Alvarez, Camila's father. His voice was grave. "Ryan, it's Hector Alvarez," he said. "I'm calling to apologize." "You have no reason to apologize, sir," I replied. "No," he insisted. "I do. I'm sorry for my daughter's behavior in our home. I'm sorry for the things she said and that we, her parents, allowed it. There's no excuse. We raised her to be better, and that night we saw we failed in some way. What she did to you and your mother's memory was disgraceful." He shared that they'd had a tough talk with Camila after I left. She broke down, admitting everything. They were deeply ashamed and disappointed. "I want you to know," he said, "we don't condone her actions. You're a good man, a man of integrity, and I'm sorry my family caused you such pain." I was touched. "Thank you, Hector," I said. "That means more than you know." This call showed Camila's support system wasn't as unbreakable as she thought. She'd always relied on her parents' unwavering support, but her lies were so flagrant, her disrespect so deep, that she'd alienated her greatest allies. Meanwhile, Camila tried to rewrite the story with our mutual friends, spinning a tale about me hiding a secret life, claiming our breakup was because I was manipulative. It fell flat. The truth of that dinner, me sitting quietly while she insulted me in a language I secretly understood, was too vivid, too damning. I shared the real story with a couple of close friends, and it spread quickly. Her attempt to paint me as the villain only made her seem desperate. Her final, pitiful act was a text last week. "I know you canceled the France trip. You owe me half the ticket cost since it was my birthday gift and you ended things." I read it, a sad smile forming. Even now, her focus was on money, on what she felt entitled to. I didn't respond. I deleted the message and blocked her number for good. Final update. 6 months have passed since my life took an unexpected but ultimately uplifting turn. The chaos with Camila has faded, replaced by a calm, steady peace. The last pieces of her story have reached me, showing a life shaped by the fallout of one disastrous night. Camila's bond with her parents is reportedly fractured. A friend who keeps me loosely updated says they've stopped enabling her. Her father, a man of values, was so appalled by her deceit that he's put her on a strict path. They're insisting on therapy, making her cover her own costs, and forcing her to grow up. The unconditional support she always took for granted is gone, replaced by cautious disappointment. She lost her fiancé and the pedestal her parents placed her on. She's still in a small apartment, working her old job and reportedly unhappy. Her attempts at dating have failed. The dinner party story has become a warning in our social circle, and her reputation for deceit and materialism precedes her. For me, I've been rebuilding. I sold the engagement ring I designed and used the money for a different trip. I didn't go to France. I went to Granada, my mother's birthplace. I spent 2 weeks there alone, walking her streets, eating her favorite foods, and speaking her language, not as a secret but as a celebration. I visited her old neighborhood and the church where she was baptized. It was a pilgrimage, a reclaiming of the identity Camila tried to tarnish. The trip was transformative. I reconnected with my mother's memory and a part of myself I'd hidden too long. I returned feeling whole, grounded, and free. I'm not dating. I'm savoring the calm rhythm of my life, focusing on my work at the firm, spending time with true friends, and planning another trip, maybe to Chile next. Camila's greatest offense was using my heart's language as a tool of scorn. She thought it was her private code, her cruel jest. She was wrong. It was my history, my heritage, my mother's love. In the end, it was the truth that freed me. She tried to paint me as a foolish, oblivious man. Instead, she exposed herself as someone who couldn't see the worth of what was right before her. That's a loss far greater than any I could have caused.